Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So on the last episode, when we were over in the other bay, we worked on a dry sump oil pan. And on this episode, we are going to be doing more work to the chassis. So we're gonna get this thing ready. We wanna try to get the truck on wheels here soon and get a cab put on it, but we need to finish the chassis up. So what I did was I ordered a front sway bar setup. This is from Coleman Racing, and we'll go over some details on that. And we're gonna install that front sway bar this week on the chassis. Also, over the weekend, I was working out here on the truck, got the hood taken off, started prepping everything to get this bad boy out. So I told you guys I got the headers out, unwired everything, got the accessories off. So it is pretty much ready to pull this motor and ready to go to its new home. Just need to unbolt the trans and lift it out. And we'll be doing a little cleanup on that and getting it sent out. So stay tuned. Hope you guys like what you see. We're gonna get back to the fabrication work and we'll see how things go. So let's talk about the piece that we got here. These are Coleman Racing 1¼ by 48 spline. These are the steel arms, and the torsion bar, or not torsion bar, sway bar we got. This is an 1¼ 200 wall sway bar. So this is pretty beefy. Set up for like NASCAR stuff. That's what these are typically used in, NASCAR modifieds and all that fun stuff. We got a 33-inch long unit here, and what we're gonna do in this episode is we're gonna get these bent 7 inches here from the tip. We're gonna bend these at a 45-degree angle, and that's gonna increase our basically our spring rate, because we'll be acting this sway bar rate will be acting farther out on the arm. So that is how we're going to set them up. But for now, we need to get some measurements marked out on the chassis, and we're going to drill some holes. So we need to go 16¼ inches from the front wheel center line and 4.4 inches up from the bottom of the frame rail. And we are going to poke a hole in the chassis that is 1 5/8 inches in diameter. We are going to sleeve that with a 1 5/8 tube, and then I'll show you guys once that 1 5/8 tube is on both sides, we're going to slide the torsion or sway bar through there, and there's a bearing in there and a set of seals and some Zerk fittings that I bought that we're going to install in there. So let's get started. Okay, so I got all 4 holes drilled on this, and what I did is I got a piece of 083 chromoly, 1 5/8 chromoly, and I cut it just so it would poke through both sides to check the alignment. So I had to do a little bit of trimming on the inside of the hole. There was a burr there, but we were able to get the bar to go all the way through, pass through nice and straight. So what I need to do next is I need to go get some more tools, because this is 083, but the tubing that we're using for the sleeve is actually 065 wall. So I went to McMaster-Carr. Where did I set the tube? It's over here. I went to McMaster-Carr and bought some 065 wall, and this has an ID. It should be about 1495, but I need to open that up to a 1.5 inch or 150. So what we got are some bearings that we're gonna push into there. And then we also got a set of seals in here and Zerk fittings. So that's what we're gonna use. But in order to do that, I need to get some like sanding drums so I can just sort of gently open this up evenly on both sides. I'll go do that tomorrow. In the meantime, I'm gonna cut these down to about 4 inches and get them prepped to get placed in there. So that's coming up next. When we weld this sleeve in, we are going to do it with the bar and the bearings in place, just to make sure that our alignment is good all the way through, at least for the tack up. Just make sure everything's squared up, and then we'll burn it in. So I'll be back tomorrow, and we'll get this tube sort of reamed out a little bit and get the bearings inserted. Okay, so I'm going to show you a trick that I probably shouldn't show on the internet, and if you do it, you're your own liability and all that fun stuff. Don't come and sue me, but I'll show you what I did, and don't do it. So this is a sanding mandrel, and the tip of this particular one, it's pretty common. These things break off. Let me unscrew it. Okay, there's supposed to be a tip that extends past that threaded portion right there. Let's see if I can get it to focus. Yeah, so it's broken off. What happens is if you thread one of these on, and it's inside of a tube where it can't fly off, the mandrel will basically kick out. The centrifugal force will kick it to the side, and it will self-center itself, and you get basically a nice even hone all the way down through. And I don't know if you can see that, but it's actually a pretty good finish. So that's what I've been doing to tune these in, and I'll just show you briefly if I can do it without sticking my hand. Don't start it outside of a tube because the thing will fly off and hit your fingers. But it's self-centering. It's basically self-centering it in the tube. You can sort of see it there. I'll go see if I can do it slow enough. But basically, I just run it all the way down and hone the tube to fit. You see it's kicked off to the side there. And as it wears off, you get fresh sanding media. But like I said, don't blow your fingers off. I didn't teach you how to do this. Okay, so using my dumb little trick, I got these about a thousandths undersize to the bearing. They're about 1499, so should be good enough. So it'll be about a 1,000th interference fit on this. Now remember, we're welding these in, so they're going to distort. But these roller cages aren't really high tight tolerance bearing cages anyway, so it's not a huge deal. But I just need to make sure that the seals will press in and all that, and then as long as it holds grease, it's fine. Remember, this thing's going like maybe a 30-second of a turn for a lot of travel. We're just trying to keep some grease on it on the bearings. So what we'll do next is I'm going to 3D print a little press piece that I can press the bearing down about 3/4 of an inch into the tube using the press here. And the little PLA plastic should be plenty strong enough to give us the force needed to press that in. So that's what we're going to do next. Okay, so I 3D printed this little press drum, and what it's got is got a little recess here for the bearing to fit over, and it is also small enough to slide down inside of there. So if you look, it goes down in, and that'll press us to a depth of about 1 inch. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull the brake out of the press. I'm going to stick this in there and try to press this in without crushing this tube. I think I have this clearance opened up enough, but we will find out together. So that worked better than I even hoped. That pressed in beautifully. So there's about 3,000ths interference on those, and I know that's tube, so it's relatively easy to conform. But nice, it went down. There wasn't even any deformation on the plastic plug. So I'm going to keep using this method for other things and see if I can find the limits of it. But yeah, those are installed. They're good to go, and we're going to go ahead and insert these now through the frame tube. We're going to remove this big full-length tube, insert these. We're going to probably use about a 1/4 inch to 3/8 of an inch poke out, and then this bearing will be inside of the frame, and that will protect it from any welding or anything like that that may occur, over penetration, stuff like that. So we're going to go ahead, pull the sway bar back out of there, get these all placed in, and get ready to weld it up. Okay, so I got the bar inserted. I will say the bearing is a little tight, so I must have had a little bit too much interference, and it's pulling down on the shaft here. And the other thing is, this shaft is 1 1/4 inches at the bearing ends. But for some reason, the main center is 1.252. So that kind of makes it tricky, because now I can't pass the bar through the bearing. So I don't know who thought that was a good idea, but that's sort of not great. So I got to find out how I'm going to handle this because obviously if I just leave it in here, I can get in a situation where I can't knock the bar back out, which is not going to work. So might have to take this whole thing and maybe put it between centers and take just a skim pass across this bar just to get it underneath the size that I want it. But sort of a pain in the butt. It's a long barrel. That's not going to be easy to, or long sway bar. So I'm going to need to go to like a gunsmith or something like that to spin something like this, or somebody with a long enough lathe that they have a pretty large tail stock or a steady rest. So not cool, but that's actually going to hang me up from welding these in, because I don't want to weld them in and have the bar in there and then not have a way to pound the bar out, because the bearing will be stuck on it. So cool. I'll let you know what solution I come up with. Okay guys, so we got these bars bent up today over at my buddy's shop. He has a nice big hydraulic press with some die sets. And basically what we did is we just bent them at a 45 degrees, 7 inches from the ends. Just need cleaned up with a flap disc, sort of take out some of the witness marks and a little bit of the bulging here. But yeah, it should work great. I went ahead and put one of them on the truck wheel. And you can see sort of how this is set up. This will be raised when it's in its actual position. And then the rod end will come out this way and then down to the mount on the A-arm. The mount on the A-arm will be on this front tube. So looking pretty good. Next up, what we're going to do is we're going to pull these off, grind them up, and then we're going to drill the hole in here for the rod end to mount. So let's get started. Okay, so we got the edges all ground down nice and smooth with the flap disc all polished up, and we got the holes drilled. These are 1/2 inch, so our rod ends are going to come. They'll go through there and have a lock nut on the backside. The rod ends are actually male rod end, which you'll see here. But that's all done, ready to go. So next up, we're gonna pull this bar out. I called my buddy Calvin. He thinks he has enough capacity on his lathe, and we're gonna turn down that inside section tomorrow and take down that to under 1.25 inches so we can pass it through these bearing sleeves once they're welded in, and won't get ourselves in a pickle there. So that's up next. Okay, so I just got back from my buddy Calvin's. We went ahead and turned down this main shank here and sort of just scuffed up these bearing sections where the powder coat was, clean that all off because the bearings are dragging a little bit when you're sliding them through. And it turned out pretty good. It's consistent all the way down. My fault, put a little nick in it when I was running because I stopped, and when I grabbed the lever, I didn't realize the one lever was actually the Y feed, and caught it real quick and put a divot in it. But I checked it, it's about 3 thousandths deep. You can just catch it with your fingernail. Shouldn't have too many stress riser issues. And then we tried to chamfer these bevels out here where it's set from the 1.25 inches down. So this is 1.25 inches. This is now like 122. So there's about a 10,000 step there, and it's just sort of chamfered down in there. So that shouldn't cause too much of a stress driver with this bar, and we should be in pretty good shape. So typically don't want a little notch like that in your sway bar, but that is so fine that we're going to be fine. It's so fine, and the thickness of the bar is so high that that's not going to cause any issues. What we're going to do before we weld the tubes in, we're going to go ahead and fill this up with water, and I'm going to cut out the tabs that need to be welded onto the A-arms down here, the lower control arms rather. So we're going to cut those out, and then that will help us sort of, it's just easier to weld everything all at once, so the machine wants. So I'll cut those out, and then we'll get to welding everything. Okay, so I got these little brackets all cleaned up and ground down, and these are going to go like this and have like little leaves on there just to sort of sure them up. And they're 3/16 plates, so they should be plenty beefy. We're going to go ahead and tack these all together, weld them solid, and then we will work on getting the tubes welded in. So let's get started. Okay, so we got the bars, the sleeves welded all the way around, top and bottom on both sides. Full transparency, the bar got tight going side to side. It still spins really nice and smooth, like this. It's smooth, nice and smooth, but I gotta use a rubber mallet and tap it through. It does go through, but you just gotta give a little to it. So what I'm gonna do now is, I got the bars basically set up that they're both at the same spline count, and I'm just going to go and I'm going to get one of these tabs right here and tack it up like this right where I want it. And I'm only going to tack the one side, and then what we'll do is once that one side is tacked, we'll take all the front suspension apart and we will measure from the joint, the rod end on the A-arm, how far out the center of the hole is, and then we'll duplicate it on this side. So that way that we have the same motion ratio on both sides of the sway bar and we have the same sway bar rate. So I'm going to go ahead, tack that up now, and then the next thing you're going to see is us tearing this front suspension apart, and we'll get the lower control arms out on both sides and then weld these on solid. So that's next. Okay, so I got this tacked on back here, just wearing a seam down there. I'm pretty sure if I pull this out, I can do all the finish welding on here, just pulling stuff out of the way. So we're gonna go ahead, leave the lower control arms on, save a little time, measure off the pivot point forward, get the measurement from over here, transfer it to the other side, and get this all burned up. So there you go, guys. Everything is welded up. I got the tabs on both sides, nice and evened out. And I got it tightened down pretty good. And you can see here the nice articulation. It's a little heavier now because I got to lift both sides, but it's a pretty nice setup. So that's going to be it for this episode. Front sway bar setup is installed. Coleman Racing and little custom mount job here. So if you liked what you saw, like and subscribe, share with your friends. Until next time, thanks. Take care.